Navigating divorce as a parent is a totally different ballgame. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to Gavels Down, Voices Up with me, Rachel King. This is where we leave convention at the courtroom door and dive into your real stories, bold and unpopular opinions, and change-making ideas that really shake the legal world up and change where change is desperately needed. I'm here to shake it up, talk about unfiltered insights, and amplify voices that need to be heard. So are you ready? Let's get it. Put the gavels down and the voices up. Divorce isn't just between spouses. Really, it's an entire family affair. Starting from how you decide to tell your children that a divorce is happening all the way through really until one of you passes away. Because if you think that learning how to navigate parenting ends when your kids are 18 years old, you are wrong. There's going to be weddings, there's going to be birthdays, celebrations, the whole nine. And it's super important that if you can learn how to co-parent and navigate your divorce with children from an early time, then you'll have a more successful parenting experience for its entirety. Today, we're going to tackle all of the issues of support, custody, maybe some little tips and tricks that I've learned over the years about how to navigate and get through your divorce when your children are involved. First, let's start that when we are talking about children, it's not just you and your wants. It's also what's going to be best for your kids. So let's get into how we handle custody and support in divorce. Okay, let's talk basics of custody. Well, custody is a very colloquial. Well, custody actually has a legal meaning. We use it a lot. We throw it around when we're talking about what's going to be happening with our kids, but there's actually legal custody and physical custody. And understanding both of them will help you figure out what kind of arrangement or agreement is going to be best in your situation as you divide. For example, legal custody, this is decision-making power. Think, what kind of healthcare is your child going to get? What kind of religion are they going to be raised in? Where do they attend school? And what kind of educational requirements are going to be needed? Legal custody, decision-making power. And it's presumed that generally both parents are going to have joint legal custody. Why? Because you kind of have a fundamental right to parent your children however you want. And legal custody provides you a say. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but let me point out that in a legal custody situation, if you share legal custody with your child, you get to be involved in those decisions. Maybe you want to raise your child Christian and other parent wants to raise your child Muslim. That's okay. Your legal custody doesn't prevent other parent from raising your child Muslim, but it does allow you the opportunity to raise your child Christian. It's the same thing with many, many issues. Hot topic, maybe not so much now, but if we rewind the clock to 2020, immunizations, it's a medical decision. As a joint legal custodian, right, a parent, you get an opportunity to weigh in on whether your child gets an immunization. That means that you can have a say. But let's say you and other parents are conflicting in that. There are laws and there are rules in places that judges typically will follow. So when it came to the immunizations, specifically COVID, one parent said no, one parent said yes. They both had legal custody. The court tended to, in that case, and tends to err on the side of what's best for the child medically. And at that point, it was that the COVID vaccine was the better decision medically. So you get a say, but if there's disagreement, hopefully you don't need the court to decide, but it might be helpful to understand how the court will decide. This has also come up a lot in homeschooling versus public schooling. Maybe while you guys are married, homeschooling is what you both agree to, but now that there's a divorce happening and a divide, one parent wants the children to go to a public school and you have a real difference of opinion. In a joint legal custody situation, both opinions matter. But many times I've had the court come in and kind of default to the societal norm, which is public school. Same with private school. right? So we have some of these ideas that in legal custody, you absolutely have a say and an opportunity to weigh in. And hopefully you guys can agree. And on your time, you can do what you want. But where there's conflict, especially when it comes to medical or education, if the parents can't decide, typically the court will come in and decide what is best for the child. Certainly an IEP is considered best. I've never seen a court not order an IEP. Therapy is also something that I routinely see courts order, even if the parents have conflicting positions on whether a child should participate in therapy. So first, understanding that legal custody is decision-making power, and then secondly, understanding that it's okay for parents to have conflicting positions on these decision makings, that's necessary. But it's also very important to understand what the courts are likely to do in the event that parents are not able to decide and they do reach out to the court to help make that decision. All right. So here again, maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but we're on legal custody. So let's talk about this scenario. This one happens to me all the time. I get mom or dad that has joint legal custody that says, oh my gosh, our kid needs braces, our kid needs an IEP, our child wants to participate in football, all of these decisions that need to be made. And a common complaint is that other parent just abdicates their position, never participates in the decision making. If you have a joint legal custody agreement or order, that doesn't mean that you need to both agree in order for your child to participate. Instead, it means that you have to afford the other parent the opportunity to weigh in. So what I like to say is, hey, shoot that text message, that talking parents message, family wizard, whatever you're doing, over to other parent and say, our child went to the dentist. Dentist is really recommending an orthodontist consultation because of some impacted teeth. Do you have a preference? Would you like to participate? Don't hear back from them maybe in a few days. Hey, I went ahead and scheduled them for an orthodontic consult at this doctor. If you want to come, here's the date and the time. And you want to afford them an opportunity. You certainly can't make anybody, but even a parent, make decisions about their child. So when I'm looking at joint custody, I'm really looking for clients to allow the other parent to weigh in and to share the knowledge. All right, so then what is physical custody? Physical custody is a little bit more complex. I think a lot of people confuse physical custody with visitation, but we're not going to do that here today because I'm going to explain visitation. Physical custody, I like to say, is when you have your child in your care, you get to make all of the decisions. You are the primary custodian. So maybe you want to go to the public park today. Maybe you decide it's appropriate to take your child to McDonald's and feed them a hamburger. Maybe you want to go out to an arcade that also is a sports bar. Maybe you want your child to go to the barbecue. Maybe it's really important to you that your child has a bedtime of 8 p.m. and also participates in family chores. How your child is treated and the control that you have is a physical custody situation. So when you have joint physical custody, which is also presumed, we are saying that you have the right to make decisions as the primary custodial parent when your child is in your care. All right, so then what is visitation? Visitation is timeshare. And I really think there's a bad connotation to visitation. So how I like to think about it is both parents have a visitation schedule. Sometimes that visitation schedule results in an absolute equal timeshare. Think week on, week off, or a 2-2-3, or there's so many ways that you could get to an equal timeshare. Sometimes parents have more time. Maybe they're the weekday parents and another parent is the weekend or alternating weekend. Maybe it's a situation where one parent lives local and one lives very, very far away across the country. And so the visitation schedule falls along more of the school break, summer break kind of schedule. In any event, the amount of time that you have your child, whether or not you are the primary timeshare or the lesser, is still a visitation schedule. So I like to stay away from calling visitation schedules only the time for the parent that has less time. Both parents get a visitation schedule. If you pick up your child on Mondays at 3 p.m. and keep them till Tuesdays at 8 a.m. and you keep switching that, that is your visitation schedule. It is the exact time. And anytime we're dealing with a divorce or quite frankly, a co-parenting situation, there has to have all three. We have to address who's going to have legal custody. We have to address who's going to have physical custody. And we have to come up with some kind of visitation timeshare, knowing and understanding that the law presumes that a joint legal, joint physical, and as equal a timeshare as possible is best for the kids. I know somebody out there is saying, yeah, but I was the primary parent during the marriage. Other parent worked all the time. I did all of the things. Okay, I work and I do all of the things too. And that works during the marriage. But as soon as that marriage is dissolved, as soon as that relationship doesn't exist anymore, that doesn't work. It doesn't work for you or for other parents to be the one that does all of the things. So many times the courts will come in and say it worked during the marriage, but now it's really important to allow other parents to have more time and to learn how to do all of the parenting things. And to all of the moms and dads out there that say, no, I want my kids all the time, I ask you this: do you, and why? I love my children, but man, I am happy when somebody else wants to take them for a bit of time. You want a sleepover? Have at it. You want to go to Nana and Baba's for a week? You betcha. How do I sign this up? Dad wants to take you out for a morning Sunday breakfast, just the two of you, or three of you, or four of you, whatever. I have 3 kids. That is fine with me. So sometimes it's about finding silver linings. And sometimes, even though you dislike this person so much that you are ending your marriage and you are changing the course and trajectory of your life, it's important to come back and remember that these children that you love so much are just as much other parents as yours, and that the law is going to allow other parents the opportunity to raise their children. It's going to be hard. It's going to be such a change for you and for your other parent and for your children, but it will be okay, especially if as you're navigating this, you understand the importance of really trying to have your kids have as much time with other parent as possible that's safe, and allowing your children to love other parent, or allowing your children to learn for themselves the kind of parent that other parent is. You got an asshole ex? Got it. It's not your job to tell your children how assholey X is, but it is your job to allow your children to come to that decision on their own. And goodness, fingers crossed. Let's cross all of our fingers and toes and hope that actually your children don't figure that out. I've handled hundreds and hundreds of divorces, maybe even dealt with thousands of clients, and witnessed so many people in the family law system. And you know what I hear over and over again, and what I wish for you, is that other parent becomes a better parent through the divorce process than they were in. Maybe they don't get enabled anymore and they have to cook dinner. They've got to go and run these. They have to have some bonding time with your child. And hopefully, the agreement that you reach or the orders that the court make will allow for that to happen. Okay, so we talked a huge amount about custody and visitation. Now let's talk about support.
And now for a quick break. This episode of Gavels Down, Voices Up is proudly brought to you by King Law Firm Attorneys at Law Incorporated. We're not just about winning cases, we're about making a difference. Whether it's family law, probate litigation, or standing up against elder abuse. We bring experience, empathy, and excellence to the courtroom. At King Law Firm, we're more than lawyers. We're your team, in your corner, advocating for your rights and making your voice heard. Visit us at thelawyerking.com and on the socials at The Lawyer King to see how we fight with you and for you. King Law Firm Attorneys at Law Incorporated, where your fight becomes our fight. Now, let's get back to today's episode.
When we talk about child support, I'm going to start with a very unpopular opinion, and that is that you are required to financially support the children that you create. That's right. If you have children, right, we tell our kids this, if you're old enough to have sex, then you're old enough to make adult decisions. That's the same with kids. If you're old enough to have sex and have a child result from it, you are old enough to understand the financial responsibility that comes with having a child. When you're in a relationship, right, when you're married, maybe you share that financial responsibility and you've made some marital decisions about how the financial and the parenting is going to be handled together. For example, maybe one parent is stay at home while the other parent goes out and works. Obviously, the money that working parent makes comes and provides financially for the household. Got it. So what happens when you're no longer married or in any co-parenting situation where you are not living together? You have to pay. It's just the bottom line. If you were the stay-at-home parent for years and years and you never thought you were going to have to work, but now you are getting divorced and you're single, you're going to be expected to financially provide for your child. If you are paying, and you're like, no, I have so many kids, my expenses are so high, I can't afford to provide all of this support for 3 children or 4 children or 5 children. Oh, well, you are working and you have to support the children that you've created. But what does child support look like? Well, in California, child support, let's talk about when it can start and when it ends. You can only start collecting child support once there's been a live birth, and that might be obvious, except that I have had people go in and try and collect child support for periods of time while they were pregnant. Or on the flip side, try and have child support reduced because they had a baby that was coming and they wanted that child to be considered and reduce the support. So child support, the soonest it can start is when there is a live birth. And then this changes all over the place, and it used to be hugely controversial, but in California now, the farthest you can go back for child support is to the date of filing. So if you know about this child and you raised this child and at 16 years old, you're like, I want child support. That's fine. You can get child support to the day that you requested it. No more is it going to be that you can raise a child through 18 and then go and get 18 years of retroactive support. Though I hear that's still a thing in other states, and I have pretty strong opinions on how horrible I think that philosophy is. Nonetheless, you can get child support back to the date that you file. So if child support is important, you want to file it. This is true in a divorce. You only can have child support back to the date that you file it. Also, side note, if you are still living together and financially have like a joint communal situation, the court isn't necessarily going to order child support, nor are they going to order custody and visitation. Why? Because everybody's still under the same roof. So just keep that in mind. So you get child support as soon as you file. And how long does it go on for? It goes on until your child is 18 or graduates high school, but not past 19 and only till 19 if your child is enrolled full-time in high school. So what are some of these things? How does this work out? Well, for example, my daughter turned 18 in March. She was still in high school. If child support were ordered, it would continue all the way until she graduated high school. Even though she turned 18 in March, because she was in high school, child support would continue. Graduates in June, child support would end by operation of law in June. Now my child turns 18 in August, but graduated high school in June. Okay, that's great that your child graduated high school. High five to you. You made it past a huge milestone. Child support is still going to continue till August when your child reaches 18. Now your child is almost 19, continues to go to school, is a full-time high school student, is going to graduate right before they turn 19. Child support would go on that entire time, but not past 19 years old. And your child must be enrolled in high school full-time. If your child drops out at any point after they're 18, there is no obligation for child support, even if they haven't graduated high school. So those are some of the guidelines on when child support naturally ends. There are some outliers, like if your child gets married or emancipated and some things like that. But for today, that's where we're going to leave it. And then how is child support calculated? Dun, dun, dun. This is what everybody hates. We look at the incomes of both parents. We look at the timeshare, right? The visitation timeshare. And we look at some of the tax statuses, dependent filings, whether there's mandatory union dues, mandatory retirement contributions, healthcare premiums, some of that is considered. We plug in the numbers in California. It's a guideline support system. So guideline is the standard. You can ask the court to deviate with it, but hold on. I know many people say they want to deviate to lower or to increase. Typically, the court is not going to deviate from guideline. I think the guideline deviation was looking at more of a Warren Buffett type situation where guideline was so low that really it wouldn't have the children provided with enough money. Here's the reason: to make the households as equal as possible. That's what the court is trying to do with child support. So after we know the timeshare and we know how much money everybody makes, we plug in the numbers and the court is going to create a child support. Even if there's an equal timeshare, very likely that higher wage earner is going to pay lower wage earner. I know nobody likes that. If you've been stay at home, court can't go force you to earn an income, but they can impute you and say, basically, for the purposes of calculating child support, we're going to assume you're bringing in this much money, but you can't be forced to bring in that much money. That's how child support is calculated. We come up with a percentage of timeshare, use all of the children, all of your deductions, and then out comes a number. And if you have more than one child, your oldest child is worth the least. So let's say, and a lot of people don't understand this, let's say your total child support for 3 children is ordered at $300 per month. It is not the case that your oldest child is worth $100 and second child is worth $100 and third child is worth $100. So that in that scenario, every time a child aged out, $100 would come out. That's not how it works. Oldest child is worth the least. Youngest child is worth the most. Why? Because we don't want youngest child to have such a significant change in their lifestyle at the receiving parent's house, right? Keep in mind, we're trying to always come in and have the lifestyles be as equal as possible, though I know in real life it doesn't work out that way. All right. Now you have child support and you have custody and visitation, and that's all so great. But understanding all of that doesn't necessarily make getting through your divorce any easier. I really do stand by the philosophy that if you understand the law and you understand your situation, it can help make decisions for your divorce, hopefully that you can reach agreements. Hopefully, it will prevent you from going and arguing over the silverware that you don't want and spending thousands of dollars and huge amounts of stress on something that doesn't really matter or that is futile and the court is going to just dismiss or rule against you for. One of the most memorable cases I've ever had that involved children. Actually, I'm going to do 2. I'm going to do a worst and a best. But we're going to start with the best because I was so incredibly impressed with this couple. Now, keep in mind, I was hired to represent one party, but I wasn't hired because it was high conflict. I was hired because the party that I represented really wanted to make sure that the agreement that was reached was written in a way to be solid, to be relied on, and to reflect written and signed by the court exactly what they were intending. So I wasn't brought in to do high conflict. But in this case, the couple had been married for 25 years. They had 6 children, 2 of which were over the age of majority, 4 that were still minors. So we had to deal with custody and visitation. But the minor children, one of them still lived with mom and dad. We had college for another one. And then both of the adult children were awarded cars, but the cars were in the couple's name and were going to be divided pursuant to the divorce. We had child support, child custody, child visitation, spousal support because wife had worked part-time the entire marriage, but had sort of put her career on hold. We had a huge amount of retirement. We had businesses. If you could think of every argument we could have it. And then get this, husband had an affair. Wife didn't know about it. And that was the catalyst that caused the divorce. And still, knowing that, this couple came together and decided to come up with a resolution that was going to work. They agreed to allow their adult children to keep the cars and that had been previously allocated to them. We signed them over to the children. We divided every single asset exactly down the middle because when they got married, they didn't have anything, but now 25 years later, they did. We allowed the children to have as much time with mom and dad as they wanted, with a flexible schedule, but also some guidelines so that there would be a week on, week off time. But dad would let the kids go to mom's anytime they wanted to, and mom would let the kids go to dad's anytime they wanted to. So there was some built-in language into their agreement about some discretion. We had child support that was run at guideline. We had spousal support that was run at guideline. Wife did not want to punish husband for the infidelity. Instead, she wanted to get out of this and keep her children as safe as possible, and also keep and whatever sanity she had and all of her, she just really wanted to move on with this. And she went through this process with such grace. And husband, he was such a stand-up guy. Even though maybe there was some decisions that he'd made during the marriage, he really understood that everything that they had was a joint community effort, and he was willing to part with it, or his half, wife's half, and they just handled it so beautifully. This couple was divorced in 7 months. The soonest you can be divorced is 6 months from the date of service of process. We had everything done. They were divorced 7 months later. Why was it 7 and not 6? Because the court was a little bit backed up. But I have to tell you, it was an amazing thing to watch, and I was so grateful to see it. If I was ever going to get divorced, I truly wish and hope that I could channel, all of their emotions, because it was beautiful. The kids did great, and it was what everybody should want to have happen. On the flip side, I handled a case where everybody was a mess. There was 2 children of the marriage. There was 3 stepchildren, 2 by husband, 1 by wife. There was assets from prior to marriage. There was a business that was opened during the marriage. We had people filing restraining orders against all parties. Husband was filing restraining orders against wife. Wife was filing competing restraining orders against husband. Adult stepchild was filing against wife. Another adult stepchild was filing a restraining order against husband. It was such a disgusting disaster. They did not have a huge amount of money. They had a house, and one wife was a minimum wage receptionist. Husband was a W-2 employee with a fixed income. We had some retirement. Should have been simple. They lived, when they separated, like a mile from each other. And yet it cost over $100,000 for one side. All of the money in the house, all of the equity went to attorneys. And we were fighting most of the issues on these dueling restraining orders, because for some reason the parties decided that if they got a restraining order, that would give them some kind of strategic advantage in a divorce case. And it was a nightmare. It was so bad that at one point I had to say, I am done with this. I cannot provide the representation that's necessary, because I couldn't get through to my client to say, what are we doing? Let's stop all of this nonsense. Let's dismiss the restraining orders. Let's get bound down to business so you can move on, where we divide the retirement, we sell the house, we try and capture as much of the equity that is left, and we let your children enjoy what time left they have as minors. Adult stepchildren, they are out of it. They never need to talk to either one of you if they don't want to. They're adults. Just say you're never going to talk to them again. Who cares? I couldn't do it. I couldn't get through. I did follow the case for a bit of time, and I did see that both parties ended up going through quite a few attorneys. So maybe it just wasn't just a Rachel issue. It was just a really high conflict divorce. I don't even know if they ever got it resolved, but that is like the example of what not to do. In that case, both people, I think, they didn't understand the laws. They didn't want to try and understand the laws. And instead, they focused on one maybe tiny part of the law and tried to use that to gain some kind of advantage and to screw the other parent. If you are going through a divorce with children and any part of you wants to screw the other parent, you're going to make it the worst situation, not only for yourself, but also for your children. So as you start navigating divorce, whether you're in it, you're going through it, or you know somebody, remember that the children, they see everything, they feel everything, and they will figure it out one way or another. It's not your job, or is it your reason or your purpose to go through and to punish other parent or to prove to your children what other parent did. I know that's much easier said than done. So here's my tips. If you're going through a divorce or you know somebody or you have, get a therapist, number one. Maybe you're not into therapy. Who cares? Do it. Why? Because your therapist can give you some tools that can help you get through the divorce process so that you're not trying to have your kids feel all of your baggage, right? You want the tools in place to learn how to navigate co-parenting. 2, you want to talk to a lawyer. You don't necessarily have to hire a lawyer, but you want to talk to them. Why? Because it's really important that you understand the laws, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And not all laws are going to be on your side, but you understand the laws and you can figure out how the laws apply in your case so that you can make the best decisions for you. That might be being able to make agreements with other parent, or it might be having to go into court, but strategizing how you're going to appear in court, what you're going to ask the judge for, and how you're going to present your case. And lastly, have a support system. Have some people other than your ex, because that's not going to work anymore, that you can go and just lay it all out there. You can't lay it out for your kids. You can't lay it out for your attorney. If you have one, that's too expensive, but you want your cheerleaders that are going to be on the sidelines saying, you know what, you've got this. You can make it through. But don't confuse the 3. Your therapist is not your attorney. Your attorney is not your therapist. Your therapist and your attorney are not your support system. And your support system, they're not living with the decisions. So don't take legal advice and therapy advice from them. Yeah. My name's Rachel King. This was all about custody, visitation, and support in divorce. And if you have children, do your best for them, because the bottom line is that your divorce will affect them, but you're in control of how.
Thanks for tuning in to Gavels Down, Voices Up. Like what you heard? Then don't just sit there. Subscribe, share, and tell me your thoughts. I'm Rachel King, bringing not just my opinions to the mic, but about the courtroom too. Your part, keep listening, keep engaging, and until next time, let's keep those gavels down and our voices up. Unmistakably up.